Welcome to AI Vodcast, the podcast channel where cutting-edge AI breaks down the most complex topics into simple, digestible ideas that connect with your everyday life. Here, it's all about exploring the fascinating, the complex, and the relatable through the lens of AI-driven conversations. No names, no labels, just AI delivering insights with a professional yet approachable vibe. Today's episode is nothing short of extraordinary. Picture this: a nation in its infancy and one man standing at the helm, tasked with defining what it even means to lead. We're diving deep into the life and legacy of George Washington, the very first president of the United States. But forget the textbook version. This isn't just dates and battles. Together, we'll uncover the man behind the title, his leadership style, and how he shaped a nation while bearing the weight of history on his shoulders. Stick with us, because as we peel back the layers, you won't want to miss some fascinating revelations. We'll touch on his unique approach to leadership, his ability to unite a divided people, and even a few lesser-known anecdotes that highlight the human side of this iconic figure. Before we get started, let me remind you, this podcast is fully AI-generated, designed to explore and enjoy the wonders of AI's growing presence in our daily lives. Everything you hear, from the host to the guest insights, is a product of intelligent systems designed to deliver knowledge with clarity and fun. And of course, this content is created with respect and inclusivity. Our aim is never to offend, but to enlighten and engage. We're thrilled to have you here, and we'd love your feedback. So if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with your community. Got a topic you're curious about? Drop your suggestions in the comments below. We're always ready to break it down for you. Thank you for tuning in. And now, let's dive into the incredible story of George Washington.
Ever wonder what it was like to be the first president?
Oh, yeah.
Like no rule book, right?
Right.
A brand new nation and the weight of history on your shoulders. You're not just making decisions.
Yeah.
You're defining what it even means to be president.
Exactly.
That's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
With George Washington, we've got historical articles, a YouTube documentary, and we're ready to go beyond the textbook version of Washington.
Okay.
To uncover how he shaped the very style of the presidency.
You know, it's crucial to understand the context here.
Yeah.
The American Revolution had just ended.
Right.
People were genuinely afraid the republic would crumble.
Oh, yeah.
If leaders acted too much like kings.
Oh, interesting.
Every little thing Washington did set a precedent.
Oh, okay.
And the sources really highlight that anxiety.
It's wild to think about, right?
Yeah.
So much pressure.
Yeah.
And speaking of precedents, let's talk about something seemingly simple, but surprisingly controversial.
Okay.
Clothes.
Oh.
The sources dive into how much discussion there was about how a Republican leader should dress.
It's fascinating how even something as superficial as fashion was loaded with symbolic meaning.
Yeah.
Washington wanted to project an image of American simplicity and virtue, but also knew he had to command respect on the world stage.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about looking good, it was about nation building.
His inauguration outfit perfectly captures this balancing act.
Oh, yeah.
He wore a suit made from American cloth, a clear nod to patriotism, but then added those fancy gilt buttons and diamond buckles. So it seems like he was trying to send a nuanced message.
Exactly.
Not too flashy, not too plain. Every detail was scrutinized and debated.
Yeah.
Which shows just how much weight was given to even the smallest choices.
Exactly.
It wasn't just about personal style.
Right.
It was about crafting a national identity through visual cues. Makes you wonder if every modern-day politician wishes they had that kind of attention to detail.
Right.
Or maybe they're glad they don't.
Yeah.
But Washington's strategic thinking went far beyond fashion.
Okay.
The sources describe some pretty interesting tactics he used to, shall we say, influence Congress.
Oh, absolutely. Washington was a master of subtle political maneuvering.
Oh, wow.
He understood the importance of consensus building, but also wasn't afraid to strategically sway opinions.
Oh.
We see this in his use of aides to chat up congressmen.
Yeah.
Almost like a proto-lobbying effort.
One source even quotes Senator William McClay, describing these aides as a standing committee, strategically positioned outside outside Congress Hall to catch members coming and going.
Oh, wow.
It sounds like politics in the early republic.
Yeah.
Wasn't so different from today.
Right.
Just with less social media and more powdered wigs.
It's a great illustration of how Washington adapted his military leadership skills to the political arena. He was always thinking a few steps ahead.
Oh, wow.
Seeking to build alliances and shape the conversation.
Right, yeah.
And it reminds us that political maneuvering is as old as politics itself.
Okay, now get ready for this.
Okay.
Let's talk about public opinion before polls.
Oh, wow.
No Twitter.
Yeah.
No Gallup.
Nope.
No instant feedback loops.
Right.
How did politicians even gauge public sentiment back then?
It really challenges our modern assumptions about how information flows.
Yeah.
Back then, politicians relied on a much slower, more localized network of communication.
Okay.
Tavern chatter, newspaper subscriptions, reports from friends and allies.
Wow.
It was a very different information ecosystem.
And yet they still managed to get a sense of the mood.
Right.
One anecdote even mentions Washington sending Tobias Lear to discreetly determine if people wanted him to serve a second term.
Yes.
Okay.
And Lear reported back that a second term was the universal desire. Of course, it's impossible to know how accurate that assessment truly was.
Right.
But it does give us a glimpse into how information and potentially misinformation traveled in those days.
Wow.
It also makes you wonder,
yeah,
does having more data points today necessarily translate to a deeper understanding of public opinion?
Do we really have a clearer picture of what people think now?
Right.
With all our polls and algorithms?
That's a good question.
But even with his finger on the pulse of public opinion, Washington couldn't escape the drama of political rivalries.
Yeah.
The sources paint a vivid picture of the legendary feud between Alexander Hamilton and Thomas Jefferson.
It's a story that highlights the inherent tensions within the young republic.
Yeah.
Initially, Washington believed that cabinet disagreements were healthy.
Okay.
Even productive.
Interested.
He wanted his advisors to challenge each other and offer diverse viewpoints.
But as we all know, things didn't quite stay productive for long.
Right. The rivalry between Hamilton and Jefferson became increasingly personal and ultimately reflected the emerging political divide between the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans.
For those of us who might be a little rusty on our early American history, can you give us a quick, unbiased rundown of what that split was all about?
Essentially, it was a clash between two fundamentally different visions for the nation.
Got it.
The Federalists, led by Hamilton, favored a strong central government, a national bank, and closer ties with Great Britain. They believed in a more commercially driven economy and saw the federal government as a key driver of progress. The Democratic Republicans under Jefferson championed states' rights, agrarian values, and a more limited federal government. They were wary of concentrated power and believed in the importance of individual liberty and rural life. These were not just policy differences. They were deep-seated philosophical disagreements that shaped the course of American politics.
So even back then, we had these fundamental debates about the role of government, the balance of power, and the very identity of the nation. Sounds like some things never change.
Exactly. And the takeaway for our listener is that the seeds of partisanship were there from the very beginning. Even a unifying figure like Washington couldn't escape the forces of political division.
Oh, interesting.
It's a theme that echoes throughout American history.
Okay, so we've covered fashion faux pas, behind-the-scenes political maneuvering, public opinion before polls, and even some early political drama. It's clear that Washington was a strategic thinker and a master of navigating the complexities of power. But let's not forget that he was so much more than just a military leader or a political operator. He played a crucial role in shaping the nation beyond the battlefield.
Absolutely.
Right.
The sources highlight His contributions to drafting the Constitution, establishing a sound financial system, managing foreign relations, and even addressing the complex issue of Native American affairs.
These were incredibly challenging issues, and his approach reveals a lot about his leadership style.
Exactly.
So I'm eager to delve deeper into these achievements. What are some specific examples? That illustrates Washington's leadership beyond the battlefield.
Well, for starters, he established the United States Navy.
Oh, wow.
Recognizing the importance of a strong maritime force for a young nation dependent on trade and vulnerable to attack. He also faced down the Whiskey Rebellion, a violent uprising in western Pennsylvania protesting a federal tax on whiskey.
Oh, wow.
This demonstrated his willingness to use force when necessary to uphold federal authority and maintain national unity.
Got it.
And perhaps most significantly, he established the precedent for a two-term presidency, a decision rooted in his deep suspicion of concentrated power and his commitment to the peaceful transfer of power. These actions weren't just about managing crises or enacting policies. They were about building the very foundations of American governance.
It's incredible to think about the scope of his accomplishments.
It is.
It's like he was simultaneously fighting battles, writing laws, and defining the very rules of the game. 2 terms. Imagine if he'd gone for 3, 4, who knows how many. But his decision to step down after 2 terms speaks volumes about his character and his understanding of the delicate balance of power in a republic. But we'll dive deeper into all of this in part 2.
Sounds good. Welcome back.
You know, it's easy to get caught up in the specific events of Washington's presidency. But what's truly remarkable is his ability to constantly adapt and rise to the occasion. This was a man who spent his life as a soldier and was then thrust into completely uncharted territory. He had to figure out how to lead a brand new nation while everyone watched his every move.
The sources really emphasize that point. Washington was acutely aware of the weight of his every decision. Every word, every gesture. He was essentially creating the blueprint for American leadership.
Wow.
It's like he was handed a blank canvas and told to paint a masterpiece with the whole world watching and critiquing every brushstroke.
And he did it all without the benefit of historical examples or established norms. So going beyond specific achievements, what can we learn from Washington's approach to leadership, especially when it comes to tackling the unknown?
One thing that stands out from the sources is his commitment to seeking out diverse perspectives. He understood that surrounding himself with people who held strong, sometimes even conflicting viewpoints would lead to better decisions.
He wasn't afraid of a little debate in the cabinet room.
Not at all.
Wow.
And that's a key takeaway for anyone in a leadership position. Instead of shying away from disagreements, Washington embraced them. He created a space where his advisors felt comfortable challenging each other and offering alternative viewpoints. He listened to all sides and then ultimately made a decision based on what he believed was best for the nation as a whole.
That takes a lot of confidence.
It does.
Especially when you're surrounded by brilliant and opinionated people. Like Hamilton and Jefferson.
It certainly does. But it also speaks to his humility. He didn't pretend to have all the answers. He was willing to learn from others. Adapt his thinking, and even change his mind. When presented with new information.
And let's not forget his restraint. We talked earlier about how wary he was of concentrated power. And how he didn't want to become another king. He intentionally limited his own authority. Which is pretty remarkable thing.
It is.
For someone in his position.
That's a crucial point. The sources emphasize how he established the 2-term precedent. Even though he could have easily held on to power. For much longer. He understood that a peaceful transfer of power was absolutely essential for the survival of the republic.
It makes you wonder what he would think.
I know.
Of the political landscape today. With all the polarization and gridlock we see.
That's a great question. Washington was deeply concerned about the dangers of partisanship.
Yeah.
And yet it feels like we've embraced it wholeheartedly.
Do you think he'd be disappointed?
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
I think he'd certainly be concerned about the state of our political discourse.
Right.
But he was also a pragmatist.
Okay.
And an optimist at heart. He'd probably roll up his sleeves and look for ways to bridge the divides and find common ground.
Maybe that's the biggest takeaway for us today. We need more of that spirit of compromise.
Right.
And a willingness to truly listen to each other. We need to remember that it's possible to disagree.
Yeah.
Without being disagreeable.
Right.
And that finding common ground is essential.
Absolutely.
For any functioning democracy.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
We may not have a Washington-like figure to guide us.
Right.
But we can all learn from his example.
And speaking of learning from the past,
I
want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Washington's handling of Native American affairs.
Right.
This is a complex
It is.
and often painful part of his legacy.
Absolutely.
Right.
The sources touch on the Northwest Indian War, which was a brutal conflict with heavy casualties on both sides.
Oh, wow.
Washington's approach was a mix of diplomacy and military force.
Okay.
And the results were ultimately mixed as well. It's a reminder that even our most revered historical figures were products of their time and sometimes made decisions that we find morally troubling today.
So, not exactly a shining moment in his presidency.
It's a complicated issue.
Right.
And it's important to acknowledge the full scope of his actions, both the positive and the negative.
Yeah.
We can admire his leadership and vision while still grappling with the difficult realities of his time.
Well said.
Thank you.
This deep dive has definitely revealed a lot about Washington. The man, the myth, the legend.
Right.
He wasn't perfect.
Wow.
But he was a visionary leader.
Yeah.
Who faced incredible challenges with courage, wisdom, and a deep commitment to the principles of the Republic.
I think that's a great summary of what we've uncovered so far.
Right.
What's most inspiring is that he never stopped learning or evolving.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
okay,
let's leave our listener with a final question to ponder.
Okay.
We've seen how much Washington worried about appearing too monarchical, too powerful. But in today's world, with all its division and uncertainty, would we benefit from having a leader?
That's a good question.
Who commands that kind of unifying authority?
It's a provocative thought and one that deserves careful consideration.
Right.
Join us for part 3 as we try to untangle that very question and explore the enduring legacy of George Washington in our modern times.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the legacy of George Washington.
You know, we've been exploring Washington's anxieties about appearing too monarchical, too powerful.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if that kind of unifying figure would even be possible in today's world.
It's a really intriguing question.
It is.
On the one hand, we're so much more fragmented now.
Right.
We have the 247 news cycle, social media echo chambers, hyper-partisanship.
Right.
It's hard to imagine any single leader transcending all of that.
It definitely feels like a different world.
It does.
But on the other hand, there's a certain nostalgia for that kind of leadership.
I think so.
Isn't there?
Yeah.
A yearning for someone who can rise above the fray. Someone we can all trust and respect.
There is.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to consider how Washington himself achieved that level of authority.
Right.
It wasn't just his military victories.
Right.
It was his character.
Yeah.
His reputation for integrity. His willingness to put the nation's interests above his own.
The sources emphasize how much people trusted his judgment and his motives.
Right.
He wasn't seen as a power-hungry politician, but as a selfless leader dedicated to the common good.
So it wasn't just about power. It was about trust.
Right.
But can that kind of trust be built in today's environment?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
The sources don't offer easy answers, but they do provide some food for thought.
Okay.
Think about how Washington navigated public opinion. He didn't have polls or social media, but he was still incredibly attuned to the collective mood of the nation.
He relied on personal connections.
Yeah.
Trusted advisors. A slower pace of information flow.
Exactly. It allowed him to build consensus. to persuade rather than dictate.
Right.
His leadership style was much more subtle and nuanced.
So maybe the lesson for today's leaders isn't about seeking Washington-level authority, but rather about rebuilding that sense of trust.
Exactly.
That connection with the people they represent.
I think that's a key insight. And it's not just about individual leaders. It's about the systems we've created. Do our current political structures, our media landscape, our modes of communication even allow for that kind of trust to flourish?
It's a big question.
It is.
One that goes to the heart of how we function as a society.
Yeah.
Maybe too big for us to fully unpack here.
Right.
But certainly worth considering.
Absolutely.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's important to remember that while Washington may be a figure from the past, his legacy continues to shape our present.
It does.
We grapple with many of the same challenges he faced.
Right.
Balancing liberty and security, navigating political divisions, defining what it means to be an American.
That's right.
Those fundamental questions are still very much alive today.
And by studying his successes and failures, maybe we can find inspiration and guidance as we forge our own path forward.
Every era has its challenges.
It does.
But learning from the past can help us navigate the present.
Absolutely.
Perhaps by reflecting on Washington's presidential style, we can rediscover those essential qualities of leadership, integrity, humility, and a commitment to the common good.
Yeah, that's right.
Qualities that feel more important now than ever.
It's a powerful reminder.
It is.
That history isn't just about dates and battles. It's about the enduring human stories that continue to shape who we are and who we aspire to be.
And with that, we'll leave you to ponder the lessons of Washington's presidency.
Sounds good.
And how they might inspire us to build a better, more unified future.
I like it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Appreciate it.
Remember, the best way to honor the past is to learn from it and create a better future for everyone.
Yeah.
Until next time.